Hello and welcome to the Road to the Garden podcast. It's Matt St. Jean here with Tommy Godin as always, and Michael DeRosa is back here, the return of the king, on a Wednesday night here before Christmas. We got some good Big East action to talk about. Excited to have you guys on.
I'm here with the
You know,
dreams. Matt St. Dream, MD the Dream. This might be a nightmare.
well, you've done, obviously, we've been doing shows all recently, but, I haven't been on in a while. And I actually tuned into the last couple, and I'm just watching them. I'm like, you know what? I had to, turn them off. I'm like, this show really needs Michael DeRosa. So finally, I'm back. And, respect to all my colleagues. They're all great people, but you're not Michael DeRosa. Let's be real. Come on. It's me.
You are a man of the people. That's the word around town.
Of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yes. Just a reminder, this podcast is presented by House Enterprise in partnership with House of College Hoops. Head over to our site, house-enterprise.com for more info. This was a big night in the Big East. We had our game of the week was tonight. Little St. John's Villanova action. This, in some ways, was a repeat of the last time they played, with St. John's immediately going out to a big lead and then Villanova just controlling from there on out. This one was easier for Villanova than the game at MSG. Tommy, you were at this one. Walk me through what it was like to be there at this game.
Oh, man. So first of all, it was freezing. It was colder inside the Finn than it was outside. I just want to get that out there. If you've never been to the Finneran Pavilion, it's literally so cold, it's hard to type. Had to get that out there. Anyhow, yeah, when the game started, it felt like it was any other Villanova game that you've watched for the last 2-3 weeks. They got off to a slow start. St. John's is not a good three-point shooting team. Of course, they come out, they hit 2 of their first 3 threes. Naturally, the three-point defense is lackadaisical. We're turning the ball over early. It was uncharacteristic. And it just felt like one of those games that could have gotten ugly very fast until the 6-minute mark in the first half. And it was like this, like a switch flipped. I don't know what happened. Who said what? I don't know.
They definitely handed out some of those mango habanero wings on the bench, and that got it kickstarted.
You like those? Oh my God, dude, they were amazing. They were so good. 9 out of 10. Wish I had more ranch. Ranch over blue cheese, by the way. Ranch supremacy. But anyhow, yeah, it was an amazing game to watch as a fan and as a reporter. It was insane to see that switch flip, and they didn't take their foot off the gas. I mean, the second half was much of the same. They picked up right where they left off at coming out of the halftime break, and the Jordan Longino game has arrived. He is here. He's been dealing with some knee issues throughout a little bit of the preseason, first couple weeks, but he looked good tonight, and all signs are pointing up for this Villanova team.
Yeah, St. John's was at one point up 29-18 in the first half. That was with 6:16 left, and Villanova had a 13-2 run going into the break, and that was just the first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, this is going to be a blowout. And it kind of was, just not in the way I saw it coming. Michael, is this what you expected to see in this game?
Well, it's funny. You guys have mentioned the switch. I actually thought the switch happened when someone tweeted out, and I quote, St. John's has been mostly in control tonight, but we learned the last time these two teams met that no lead is safe. There's a lot of basketball left. Mr. Matt tweets that out. Villanova, game over. Yeah. Right there. That's when it switched.
I kind of knew that was going to happen too. That's why I threw in the caveat. There's a lot of basketball left. So we know what happened. The last time they played, what was it, a 17-point lead for St. John's in the second half?
I think got up to as much as 20. Yeah. It was. I turned it off. I was so mad. I turned it off. I went to go make dinner. My girlfriend texted me. She goes, "I can't believe it's a 2-point game." I'm like, "Shut up! No, it's not." Like, I'm emotional right now. Like, don't do this to me. She goes, "Go turn the TV back on." She was at work, and I go turn the TV back on. It's a 2-point game. That was crazy. Shades of that tonight at the Finn.
Yeah, being there at MSG for that game was absolutely unreal. The crowd was going nuts for that game.
Can only imagine.
That game was a ton of fun. Oh, yeah. My goodness. But yeah, back to this one. It was more or less kind of what I expected. I didn't expect Nova to look almost as dominant as they did, especially when Cam Whitmore was 3 for 9. I mean, granted, he changes this Nova team completely. Just you have to attract so much attention to him because he's so
Agreed.
good. He's that athletic guy. He's that shot creator who commands so much attention. 10 rebounds. It doesn't even look like it just looks like it's so easy for him. It's just unfair. But other than that, like Nova's so smart that you're not going to St. John's wants to make you push the tempo. That's not happening against Villanova. Kyle Neptune also he's that same brand of basketball. He's like, maybe even more so, where he's like, slow it down. You are not pushing. You are not rushing. Slow, slow, slow. And it worked. They looked great. They look great.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, once they got things figured out, and I think it helped. Like Posh and Curbelo did not have their best nights tonight. And once this whole St. John's thing is predicated on being in transition. So once you're forced into the half court, everything slows down. It's out of rhythm. The guys aren't getting good looks, and I don't think it's less so that they got cold and more so that Villanova made the right adjustments and cleaned things up on the offensive end too to stop turning it over.
Yeah, Mike Anderson didn't mince words after the game talking about Posh and Curbelo. He said they need to be better. He said even Joel Soriano early, he needed to be better. They didn't get to the line a whole lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they only shot 6 free throws the entire game.
Yeah.
It was
all in the second half too.
Yeah, crazy. I don't know how much of it was their offense having a bad night and how much of it was Villanova's defense, but another strange thing in this game that happened, AJ Storr, he came in and he was outstanding. He had 8 quick points, and then he just takes him out, and Villanova goes on that 17-2 run, and the game's over. He doesn't come back in until there's 1 minute left in the first half, and like Anderson just said, he's tired. I mean, that's inexplicable to me. It was mind-boggling watching that live.
That was exactly what I was about to say. AJ Storr, I watched some of his just some highlights or whatever when he was coming in as a freshman. Like, I really like his game. He's a freshman, but he doesn't really feel like a freshman. He feels like he knows what he's doing out there. Like, he's a calming presence. He's not great, and he can shoot the ball really well. And against a Nova defense that isn't very good at guarding the 3-point line, and St. John's doesn't have a ton of shooters except AJ Storr. AJ Storr is your guy and they went zone sometimes. AJ Storr is the zone buster. That is AJ Storr. You have him on the roster for him to hit shots. When Nova is collapsing everything in the paint and they're a good interior defense, AJ Storr is the guy. Play him more. And again, I was looking through team rankings, just doing some research, whatever, for an article I have coming up. A lot of Big East teams aren't great at defending 3-point line. Nova's down towards the bottom 100. Creighton, Georgetown most definitely is. Have you seen Patrick Ewing's defense? Please. So it's there are teams. AJ Storr is going to be a factor in games because he is the best shooter on the St. John's team. You have to play him and you have to let him be a factor. You have to let him win you games.
Yeah, exactly. He's only going to be a factor if Mike Anderson lets him. And I think that was, to me, the biggest red flag about St. John's over the offseason was this is a team that was not great at shooting the ball last year and lost all of its good 3-point shooters. The projected starting lineup for this year did not have a single 3-point shooter who shot more than 30% last year. So you need to get that from somewhere. And they're not, with what St. John's does, the half-court offense doesn't have to look great. It can be clunky. You can still win that way, and that can be okay, but that means you have to have isolation scorers. And David Jones can be that guy, and Joel Soriano can be that guy at times, but you need one more. You need a guy who can do it from the outside, and they just don't have that right now, at least not a guy that they're playing.
Yeah, that's AJ Storr territory, and it wasn't there tonight. Curbelo and Posh need to be better, but yeah, going off what Michael said, Cam Whitmore just changes the entire complexion of this team. Having Cam Whitmore back to flip it back to Villanova, They're undefeated right now. I don't know if you guys knew, but before Cam Whitmore was preseason, those games didn't count. So since Cam Whitmore's back, Villanova and UConn are the only two undefeated teams in the Big East. They're on a collision course for one another. And but early the St. John's team was double teaming Cam Whitmore in the post. And this is a kid who has a handful of college games so far. And just having him out there opens up everything for everybody else. And this is a completely different team than the one that got off the plane coming back from Portland in the PK85.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about our next segment here. We're going to talk about another team that has kind of come on over that same time span. But yeah, this is I think Villanova, you really have to divide what you're looking at here. And this Villanova, even though the record was bad to start the season, none of those losses were that bad. It felt like the Portland one wasn't great. The Temple one's not great, but they're not awful. It's not the end of the world. And you watch those games, it feels like, oh, they're probably one player away. Well, turns out they were getting at least one player back here, and with Justin Moore's status still up in the air, we'll see what they end up getting out of him. I don't think it should come as a surprise that if you add a guy who's that athletic, your defense immediately gets better. That's how it should be.
Yeah, and John Fanta was just on the full 40. Their last episode, another podcast I listened to. Go listen to them if you don't already. But he was saying a team that started out 2-5, like Villanova, a lot of teams the media would put the dagger right in their coffin. I mean, their season would be over and we wouldn't be talking about a berth in March. But here we are with Villanova. I said on our conference preview episode of this podcast, I said Villanova's done a complete 180, and Kyle Neptune, he always talks about being the best team that you can be at the end of the year. They're well on their way to being that team.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Just one quick thing, first of all. Cam Whitmore, just the way he changes like the energy of that team. You were watching early seasons, like they clearly need a shot creator. They need someone. And Cam Whitmore is that guy. He just attracts so much like energy. I've said it a couple of times, but I agree with everything you said, Matt, except the one point where you said they didn't have one loss that was like that bad. That Oregon loss, that was bad. Yeah. That was bad. But other than that, and it's a different team. As Tommy, you mentioned, it's a different team. This Nova team, they're a completely different team. And you just take the team you saw there, throw it out the window. They're back.
Yeah. So Villanova, 5-0 here in December. And there's another Big East team that is 5-0 in December right now. That's the team that won last night in what may have been the most thrilling Big East game we've seen yet. And that's that double overtime game up at the AMP in Providence. Friars beating Marquette, scored 103 points, 103-98 to score in that one. And really an insane game from start to finish. I know I've got my thoughts, but I'm going to be a little bit biased here. So I want to let you guys jump in with your thoughts on this one before I go.
Dude, Bryce Hopkins is making me look like a genius. When everyone zigged, I zagged. I picked him as my transfer of the year instead of Baylor Shireman. And I mean, what a game he had. What a season he's having. He's really turning it on. I think the Friars are going to go as he goes. He had, what was it, 29 and 23? Granted, it was 2 overtimes, but that's still absurd. That's an absurd stat line. That was a great win for the Friars, who you bring it up all the time. Well, not all the time, but you bring it up a lot recently, Matt. The last 4 or 5 games have been the best 4 or 5 games that they've played, and that's exactly what you're looking for coming in a Big East play.
Yeah, Bryce Hopkins, I mean, you can't say enough. Did he have like 29 and 23, something like that? He was incredible, absolutely incredible. If he can be that guy for them all season long, like that almost like first team all Big East Conference type guy, it's like, yeah.
After that game, Bryce Hopkins moved into the top 5 Big East players on KenPom on their all Big East list, which, I mean, I think the craziest thing is that I don't think this is as good as Bryce Hopkins gets either. He still looks raw. He still looks unfinished out there. He just finds ways to finish plays, and he gets to the line a lot. I think as he continues to develop, he's going to be getting to the line less because he's going to be finishing these looks, and they're going to be and ones instead of 2 free throws. And that's going to be more points. I think his 3-point shot is going to come on a little bit stronger too. He's going to shoot it a little bit more and have more confidence with it. He is incredible. And we're talking about being a different team. If you go on Bart Torvik, which is basically just KenPom with a couple slight differences, that website, you can filter by date. In November, so taking out the preseason stuff, just in the month of November, Providence is a team. I think they're ranked at 143 on Bart Torvik. They're 1 spot behind DePaul for efficiency in the month of November. So far in December, they are a top 30 team. They are the third best team in the Big East. And this was before the St. John's Villanova game. So I'd be interested to redo that after this and see where exactly Villanova falls on that for the month of December right now. But a complete 180 for the Friars here. And it took time for the group to come together. It's 5 new starters. That's, I think, to be expected.
And you look at Bryce Hopkins' next game against Butler. Butler doesn't have a guy that can match up with him. That is their one, like Keontae Johnson when they played is a lot very similar to Bryce Hopkins. Mm-hmm. Keontae Johnson had like 22 points on like 9 of 9 shooting. So in Providence next game against Butler, I would expect more of the same from Bryce Hopkins. Yeah. That's point A. And then the next point also I had was Providence has probably been the most impressive team in this short little game in the Big East. Like they are 2-0. And their 2 wins are 2 tough wins. You go at Seton Hall. That's a gritty Seton Hall team. Then this Marquette game, that's a 2 overtime war. And they come out on the right side. None of the other teams who are like 2-0 in conference have the same level of wins Providence does.
The Friars were down by 9 in both games. Down by 9 at the half against Seton Hall. Down by 9 with, I think it was about 6 minutes left there against Marquette. They held Marquette scoreless for 8 possessions in a row at the end of that game. And at the end of regulation to force that overtime. So it was a crazy comeback there, which side note, I don't know if you guys know of this game at all. Back when I went to Providence, there was a game against Marquette where they were down by a similar margin with a similar amount of time left. And in typical AMP/Dunk/Providence Civic Center fashion, there was a slippery floor because it was a warm day. So it was just this insane game where players kept slipping and falling, and there were turnovers everywhere. And the Friars pulled off this comeback and ended up winning. And people were like throwing chairs behind me in the student section. And that was, I think it was David Duke was visiting at that game as a recruit for Providence and had like a video of the student section on his story. Just a wild game. Providence and Marquette have played. They have the game at that's not Fiserv. They're their old arena, or maybe it was at Fiserv with the bat. Years ago, there was a bat flying around in the arena. The game that they had last year at the Dunk came down to the very last possession. These 2 teams are just every game. It's something interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Ed Cooley talks about it. He talked about them going through the speed bumps, the ups and downs, ebbs and flows early on in the season, and we're definitely seeing a little bit of that. But everything seems to be turning around. Like, not only, like you mentioned, not only Hopkins, Bynum had 16 in that one. Devin Carter had 20. Ed Croswell had 20. Croswell, he only had 4 boards, and he's one of the best rebounders, not only in the Big East, but in the country. You know, so Marquette was already a team that was exciting to watch, but I mean, that little history lesson you gave us about the about the matchup between Marquette and Providence, that's got to be must-watch TV.
Yeah. These 2 teams always have something. It's fun. Ed Croswell is 9th in the country in offensive rebounding percentage right now.
Wow.
Which you would never expect from a guy of his stature.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. I think we also got to talk about Marquette here because I thought Marquette looked really good. Marquette they're streaky. When they get cold, they get cold. But at one point in the second half, they were shooting 81%. I don't think Marquette deserves to drop out of the AP poll for this. A road conference loss and double overtime. No, they're a top 25 team in the country, and they played like it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. At first, I would have disagreed, but looking back on it, yeah, a road conference loss. I feel like these are 2 very similar teams when you stack them up against each other. Cam Jones, I think, is the undisputed leader of this Marquette team right now. Kolek looked a little shaky towards the end of that game. I watched most of it until my eyes could not stay awake anymore. But Prospers looked good. Iguodala's looked good. These are 2 very similar teams, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see when the polls come out on Monday.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to stay in just because the AP poll. Sometimes you don't even know what they're looking at. Like the one this week, I just saw people on Twitter were just ranting about it. I think like Illinois looked bad in their 2 games and they moved up. It's like, sure. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect Marquette to stay in, but there is no team in the preseason I was more wrong about than Marquette. They're really good. They're really good. And there's just not much else you can say about it. Like Cam Jones, so much better than he was last season. Iguodala, so much better. Joplin, Kolek. It's just like normally you don't want to back teams that like are relying solely on development and getting these guys developed, but Shaka done an excellent job. Front runner for coach of the year, he should be at least.
Yeah,
Excellent job with this Marquette group.
It's he and Dan Hurley. It's a 2-horse race for that right now, and what they've done is incredible. Tyler Kolek had a career high here, which a sneaky subplot for Providence right now. Bryce Hopkins has had career highs in back-to-back games in the Big East. The Friars have also allowed an opponent to have a career high in both games, with Kadarius Richmond going for 28 points and Tyler Kolek going for 29 points. So for as good as Providence is, this defense definitely leaves something to be desired right now.
Yeah, for sure. The offense is what's most perplexing. There we go. To me, how do you lose guys like Daryl Morcell, Justin Lewis, and your offense gets better? Like
a lot better.
Yeah, significantly better.
I don't know what they're doing. What do they have in the water in Milwaukee?
Like jeez.
Yeah. They're getting them on Miller Lite and some sausages out there, and I guess listen.
Matt, your sausage flights, pause. Your sausage flights when you were out in Milwaukee looked absolutely fantastic from that brewery.
Oh yeah, that. Oh my God, I always get it mixed up. This place, Lakefront Brewery in Milwaukee.
That needs to be on Forging the Fin.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. I'm not even sponsored by them, but they do sausage flights that are so good. They also do regular beer flights. Highly recommend it. Fantastic.
Not sponsored, but sup.
Yeah, would absolutely take a sponsorship if they're willing. Lakefront Brewery, if you're listening, I'll take some money.
Matt takes payments in 10 signs, as you can see that little mini collection starting behind them.
Yeah, I've got one that's above my desk here too. That's not. I'll have to get it back there at some point.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Should we move on to this UConn Georgetown game?
Yes, the comedy section of the night.
Yeah, so this in our preview on Monday, we kind of laughed through this game thinking there's no shot this one was going to be close. And then you're checking the score and you're following this one all night on Tuesday, and it's a close one for most of it before Mr. Joey California lifted the Huskies. This ends up being a wild game. I can't believe it's as close as it was.
Yeah, I'd like to think that in the pregame meeting, a pregame huddle before the game, Georgetown just showed our podcast on TV as bulletin. But Matt, I literally said that the only way they could win is if UConn's bus gets derailed on the way there and they have to play against the managers. Like, all jokes aside, like props to Georgetown for shutting me up. I did not think that they had that talent on their team, and it's very evident that they do. They made UConn look vulnerable, which is something that, they did a little bit in that Oklahoma State game, but other than that, they haven't shown any signs of slowing down, and it took Georgetown to expose that. What a wild ride. Props to Georgetown for making me eat my words.
This game was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. Primo Spears, though, was incredible. Every single time it felt like, all right, UConn could make a run here. Then it's like Primo Spears step back long two bucket. It's like, I don't know. He was just awesome. It was incredible.
I find it funny too with Spears. It's like I don't feel like he takes high quality shots.
No, never.
But they go in. Like it's just, and you look through the box score and you're looking at the number of shots. Like Georgetown's like not really scoring in the paint, but also not even attempting threes. And it's all right. So all of the points are happening in that little area between the paint and the 3-point arc.
Well, they don't really have an offense. That's kind of the problem. It's just kind of Primo Spears, do whatever you can, and everyone else get out of the way. Get out of the way. And when he's on, he is on. If Georgetown wins a game in conference, which they played DePaul at some point, so it could happen.
That's next week.
It's going to be because Primo Spears puts up an insane amount. And it's just going to be all middies. All middies. He is incredible, but this game was so stupid. I don't know how Georgetown was in it for so long. Then Georgetown's up like 7 at the end of towards in the second half. And Patrick Ewing subs in Malcolm Wilson, who was a team manager 3 days ago. He's a team manager. The Dante Harris transfers. No one's asked him about that, by the way. Most outstanding player in the conference, he transfers. No one, he still said anything about it.
He's like local too. Like he just goes across the river there or whatever to Virginia.
Yeah. If Tony Bennett wants you, it means you're good. he's not misevaluating many guys.
No.
But he subs in Malcolm Wilson at the number 2, should be number 1 team in the country. And it's like, all right, Malcolm, well, we're winning. Adama Sanogo, Donovan Klingon, here you go. It's like, really? This guy was a manager. What are you doing? I don't know, man. It's just, this game was off the rails.
I couldn't have said it any better. And UConn did what you kind of expected UConn to do at the end here. They also didn't shoot the 3 ball as well as they usually do. And I'm guessing Georgetown's defense really didn't have a whole lot to do with that. It's just a little bit of an off night for them there. So I think this is a mix of UConn had a bit of an off night. And it's a Georgetown offense that, while really not that cohesive, somehow has managed to score points here in Big East play. I mean, the 2 games they played, they scored very well against Xavier, and they scored pretty well against the UConn defense. It's one of the best in the country. So I don't know how it's getting these results, but it's getting them. Obviously, Primo Spears is a bucket right now. I mean, he is basically all of it. Jay Heath scoring, Cook scoring. Yeah, we didn't even mention that. This is the Cook revenge game.
Yeah, he took that personally.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, I got a question for you. This was the funny game of the year. What was funnier, when Joey California and UConn were going on that run and Fox just kept panning to Patrick Ewing, making the same face? Or was it Bill Raftery when someone was driving the lane? He goes, "Look at him sucking that D."
He knew what he was doing too.
He knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, this game was it should have been on Comedy Central. It was.
Oh my god, the pans to Patrick Ewing were awesome.
This game,
you know what? This game was perfect. It was Joey California of all guys going off, throwing behind the back passes. It's like, this might as well happen.
The Big East is missing a whole window here. I'm realizing with this game, because the NFL, they do that Christmas game where they put it on Nickelodeon. That is what this game should have been. And can we get like the splash zone that, like, every time somebody hits a 3, there's like the slime that comes out or something?
Could you imagine Patrick Ewing getting slimed when he was making that play? Dude, what a disaster. What a disaster.
Oh my
hey, I mean, for real though, props to Georgetown. I did not think that they had the talent on this roster to even play the same sport as UConn. And they looked a lot better than I thought, and maybe they might win a game. I don't know if that's a silver lining or not. But I mean,
the defense ranks 260th in the country, which isn't great, but the offense has cracked the top 100. So,
all right. Where are they? Where are they as a team?
In KenPom, they are currently 170.
Oof.
And they ended last year at 175. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call improvement.
How did your defenses get that bad?
5 spots at a time. If Georgetown keeps improving at this rate, give it about 30, 35 years, and Ewing is going to have this team in the national championship.
Extend Ewing. Matt, give me some teams that are around Georgetown in the defensive rating.
In the defensive rating, let me pull this up right here, because this is not going to be pretty.
No, far from it. Oh God.
Yeah, so Georgetown's at 260. The team ahead of them is Portland State. The team behind them is Illinois State. They're near Toledo. They're ahead of Presbyterian.
Oh,
so that's good.
You should get that. Hang the banner.
Yeah, hang the banner.
Ahead of Presbyterian KenPom defensive rankings.
Let's see if they might have the worst defense of any power conference team here. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anybody else that's like, I have yet to see Louisville in here. I don't know how bad Louisville's defense is. Yeah. No, I think they might have the worst power conference defense in the country. So holding UConn to 84 points while having one of the worst defenses like that is genuinely impressive.
How do you get a Cook, go from a Caden Rice to a Cook, and have the defense get worse? It doesn't make sense. It should just naturally just get better, because a Cook's blocking he's everywhere, and somehow the athletes on this team are really good. Tommy, this team has talent. If you're just looking pure talent, if you get a team that had at the beginning of the season the Big East most outstanding player, a guy who was looked at to be a possible first-round pick, a former 5-star, a guy who started on a team that won the Big East tournament, and we're just going down that roster. It's like that roster has talent. Multiple 4-stars who just don't play for who knows. the roster, if you just look at it like that, is like probably top 3 to 5 in this conference, which sounds insane to say. And then you just go, you just do one of those blind resume things just for talent, you're like, wait, there's something here. And you're like, no, it's Patrick Ewing coaching a team. Yeah. Defense got worse.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is the worst defense this year. It's impressive. It takes effort to get worse the way Georgetown seems to have done on defense, but the offense is keeping them afloat right now. So they may win a Big East game. Yeah,
6 assists on 27 made baskets.
Yeah, that's
not sustainable.
It's all iso ball.
Doesn't make sense.
It's all iso ball. Which, side note, I want to realize we didn't touch on it at all. I want to go back to that Providence game for a second because the officiating in that game was something else. And what also reminded me of that is that Marquette had 30-something made baskets in that game. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I believe only 9 assists. It was all iso ball. It was all pick and roll. And Marquette had 19 free throws. Providence had 49 free throws.
Well, the hometown whistle benefits you. You don't complain. Yay.
What I'll say is this. I don't know how much of it was a hometown whistle, which there's definitely some hometown whistle involved in that. How much of it was involved in the fact that the Providence defense was so bad that when Marquette got through, it was just a free lane to the basket with nobody around. Like the Friars were like passing into good looks and drawing fouls because of it. Marquette was just getting open lanes and fast breaks. What was that, Tommy?
Said I got to witness front row a James Breeding disaster class. That was my first one.
Stars are out, baby.
Yeah. I mean, that was incredible. I watched Mark Armstrong get mauled. I mean, I think he can consider pressing charges.
That was the fun. Well, because like a lot of the time it's like, oh, like one side's calling for a call and everybody's up in arms. And then you go show the replay and it's like, oh, it actually was just not a foul, but it looked weird. Yeah. And they go back and it's, oh, Mark Armstrong goes for a dunk and like takes an elbow to the face and misses the dunk because of it. Very obviously. Yeah. And they just didn't call it.
I don't think he's landed yet. Like as we speak, I think he's still falling. It was that bad.
Well, with how cold the fin is, he's just stuck there.
Breeding did a game at Hinkle last year. I was in the student section. I was heckling him the entire time. It was just, I was the one person yelling at James. Everyone probably thought I was a maniac, but I'm like, this is my chance to yell at James Breeding. That is what I'm going to do. And if he does another game of Butler that I'm working, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't. Oh my God, he's so bad.
To be fair,
you may see him at the Providence Seton Hall game over the weekend too, and it was exactly what I expected.
Breeding! Oh my God! He's so bad. It's like, why does he have a job? And they let him at the Final Four.
Some have said
no. Get him out. Oh my God.
Some have said that he's the Patrick Ewing of officiating.
the coach, not the player.
And that's saying that is. If you are fortunate enough to not follow me on Twitter, you know I am not a fan of Patrick Ewing's coaching. I genuinely think Breeding's worse. He's like the Melvin Gordon of officials. And Melvin Gordon, nobody fumbles at the 2-yard line like Melvin Gordon. And every single time it finds a way to screw you somehow, fantasy, gambling, otherwise. He's the Melvin Gordon of officials. He just is. He's so bad at his job.
And I'm not even sure he's the worst ref in the Big East.
They rank them on KenPom.
They do rank them, yes.
Pat Driscoll on that
is up there.
Driscoll,
John Gaffney.
I don't recognize Gaffney.
He does a refs podcast. Like I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah. All right, we gotta get this going here, so we're gonna move on. We could do ref discourse all day long. Well, we might have a
separate episode. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do a power rankings of the refs at the end of the year.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, now we're getting spicy. All right, one more Big East game happened since the last time we talked to you. Xavier holds on to beat Seton Hall. I think this game was a little bit closer than I expected it to be. Seton Hall is 0-2 in the Big East, and in both games, they had a 3-pointer in the final seconds to tie the game that they missed. I think this is a Seton Hall team that has improved with Kadari Richmond playing better, but I think they also just caught Xavier on and off. It's hard to tell how much of this was the Seton Hall defense playing well and how much of it was Xavier having an off night.
Yeah, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Shaheen Holloway is going to be successful at Seton Hall, and it's not going to be this year. I mean, we talk about Georgetown, who they're talented, but they're not good. Seton Hall, I feel like, is on the flip side of that. I feel like they could be decent. They could win a couple games in the upper tiers of the Big East, but they're not talented. I mean, Kadari Richmond, he's outstanding, but I mean, there's no depth. Did Shaheen Holloway have anything to say after the game, by the way, Matt? I didn't catch it.
I'd not looked at any quotes on this one. I hadn't
usually
seen anything pop up. So I'm assuming when you play two close Big East games like that, you're probably not throwing too many people under the bus like after you lose to Siena.
Yeah. He usually has some gold to say after the game, but yeah, I mean, this Seton Hall team, I'll give them credit. They're an absolutely gritty team. Shaheen has them playing just full throttle, nose to the hardwood, but I don't know. I don't like the makeup of this roster. Shaheen's doing a great job getting everything he can out of these guys.
They don't have shooting. That's the real problem with them. They have the athletes. They have the defense. They just don't have the shooting and really no go-to scorer. Like Kadari Richmond he's not like a natural. He doesn't feel like a guy who's like built to score. It's just doesn't seem like how he's wired. He's not wired to be a score first guy. He's a defender. He's a setup guy. He can get a bucket when it's there for him, but he's not the guy who you want like game on the line. That just doesn't seem like who he is. Like Holloway drew up a set where it was like a down screen to get Richmond against Colby Jones in the middle of the floor. Everybody else spaced out. And he just didn't feel right. He just couldn't get a step going and he just fell over travel. It just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like this is the guy that should have the ball with the game on the line. And that's not a disrespect to him. Kadari Richmond's an excellent player. It's just he doesn't feel like he is wired to score.
He needs to be the secondary scoring option in an offense, not the primary. Yeah. Alexis Yetna should come back at some point, I think. So maybe that helps with that. But yeah, I don't know. This Seton Hall team feels like it's filled with like the honorable mention type players. Just like a whole bunch of role players. And even just writing that article about him last week and being there for the game. It's like I watched the entire game and I still couldn't tell you exactly what half of these guys do when they're on the court because they're out there and they're going to run the system and they kind of blend in. That's you learn the rosters too as you watch a lot of the games this year and you're figuring out who's who. And Seton Hall's roster is the one where like I'm still looking at the numbers trying to figure out who's who because it's just everybody is between like 6'5" and 6'8". They're all wings. None of them can shoot and they all play defense.
It's a lot like the Butler team that had Bryce Enzi, Aaron Thompson, those guys. Like they were the unsung heroes of the team that was ranked number 5 in the country, I believe. It was the year before I went there. Then those guys, they all leave. Like Kamar Baldwin's gone, Sean McDermott gone, Jordan Tucker went pro in one of the weirder decisions ever. That didn't make any sense, especially because he apparently comes from money. But hey, I hope he's doing well. I have no idea where he is playing now. But then they just have the team with those guys, and it's like they can't score. You have the unsung heroes, but you don't have the guy who can take over. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't feel right. That feels kind of like what the Seton Hall team feels like. Though I actually discovered something doing some prep. Don't want to brag, but I actually did some prep before this one for the first time like ever.
Wow.
Bravo to me. So obviously UConn is the most Q1 wins. They have 4. No other Big East team is particularly close. Guess who's second?
I'm assuming based on this, it's going to be Seton Hall.
Seton Hall.
Georgetown.
Because Seton Hall beat Memphis.
They beat Memphis, and then they had that at Rutgers.
Yeah.
You know what the Big East team is too? Yeah.
Like and they have one of the worst losses of any Big East team this year, and the Siena loss, and then a really good win against Rutgers. The Seton Hall team feels like it's probably a year away, but I can envision a scenario where the team develops and builds cohesion down the stretch. And this ends up as like a 9-11 Big East team that probably doesn't make the tournament, but is just a nightmare for teams to play and is going to knock some people out at the end of the year.
Yeah, you got 2 Q1 wins now. That's actually not bad. That's pretty good. And they have the one bad loss to Siena, but who isn't terrible for MAAC team. But other than that, like they're fine. They've played a pretty tough schedule, all things considered. Like you get a couple wins going, that it's not the worst spot. for a 7-6 team, you don't expect to say they have a chance at like making the tournament, but they don't. 2 Q1 wins at this spot, second most in the Big East. That's not bad.
Yeah,
Which
no,
feels weird to say, but they're
gonna have some chances here. This is
500 conference. You can make it.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Tommy?
I forget, if we're being completely honest.
That's not bad.
Slipped my mind.
You know what game I'm looking forward to here for Seton Hall? I'm just gonna look forward real quick. They play St. John's at home on New Year's Eve. And that feels like a really interesting test for both teams. Because these teams both feel like they're kind of like ensemble casts with a lot of guys who like to play. They like to go up tempo. They like to play defense. They're different in size and construction of roster, and they're not the same. But this is 2 New York teams that are very aggressive and very physical. And I think we're going to see some fireworks when they come together.
Yeah, I think Seton Hall is the team that we thought St. John's would be before the season. Like a team that probably won't make the tournament, but it's just a nightmare to play. St. John's is still exceeding expectations. I think that it's a very realistic ceiling. Like you said, a 9-11 team kind of flirting with that. They're going to be a nightmare for whoever they play in the first game of the Big East tournament. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the schedule. They get Creighton at home in February. They get Xavier at home in February. They get Villanova at home at the very end of February. And their last game is a trip to Providence. And those are all games that they're probably not going to be favored in, but they're going to have a chance. And they can play spoiler there for sure. And you never know. Think Alexis Yetna comes back, things turn a corner. We're not knocking the Seton Hall team out yet.
No, definitely not.
No. All right. We're going to wrap up here quickly by looking ahead. We got 2 more Big East games this week. Both of them are at Creighton. So that's where we're going with this one. Before we do that, just a reminder that we've teamed up with SeatGeek this season to get you the best deals for tickets to your favorite teams. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, and they're here to give you some great deals. Get in on the fun and head over to SeatGeek, download the app, and use code NCAA Hoops Digest for $20 off your first purchase. If you want, you could use that code. Go buy tickets for the Thursday night Butler at Creighton game, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock local time, out in Omaha on Fox Sports 1. Creighton team that's lost 6 in a row. A Butler team that has Ali back and Jalen Thomas back a little bit. He was getting some depth minutes in that last game. Michael, I want to start with you here. What do you think about this game?
So for starters, the big thing is that it's been circulating that Ryan Kalkbrenner is expected to be back. That is huge. Creighton is so much better. I didn't. This wasn't prep. This was me writing for an article I'm hoping to get up tomorrow. Creighton is so much better with Ryan Kalkbrenner. Like over the last 3 games. Shout out to Team Rankings, by the way. They have a little section where it's just like last 3. It's great because he's missed the last 3. It was very easy for me. I enjoyed that very much. But over the last 3 games, like their offensive efficiency has gone from 1.024 to 0.926, which is almost a whole point worse. And defensively, they've gotten worse, going from allowing 0.955 points per possession to 0.997. So they're allowing more. Not adjusted for opponent, but again, before in that stretch, they played Arizona, Arkansas, Texas Tech, and Texas, 2 top 25 teams. And in the last few games, they played Marquette, top 25 team. But other than that, I think it was Arizona State, who's frisky, and BYU, who's terrible. They're not good.
I will say it's a BYU team that was supposed to be good. So I think they have talent. It's a team with talent that I think played a good game. Teams like that they'll always have like one good game. People are surprised, and it's like, no, this is a team that had talent. They didn't live up to it, but any team with talent can do it for 40 minutes.
I'd agree. I did like tape before the Butler played BYU, and I'm like looking at this team. I'm like, their opening game, I believe they beat wasn't Pacific. It was someone like that though, by like 2. And I think it was Idaho State. And it's like, all right, I got my eye on you. You could be just a fraud. And they played Butler, and I think the only reason that game was close was because Butler's guys were tired, because it's 6 guys on 40 minutes a game, basically. Mm-hmm. And that was after playing a game yesterday against Tennessee, who just wears you down. So I thought that was the only reason that game was close. They don't have a point guard. Rudy Williams could be that guy, but he isn't that guy yet. But anyway, this isn't BYU. This is Big East, please. Utah Mormons out of here. But over the last couple games, Creighton, based on 100 possessions, was plus 2.9 points per 100 possession, and now they were minus 0.71 over the last 3. They were 10 points worse over the last 3 games. 10 points per 100 possessions worse, which is that's a lot. That is very significant. That wins and loses you multiple games. They probably win those 3 with Kalkbrenner. But, more context. It's all right. I got you. Don't worry. Creighton is 77th in non-adjusted offensive efficiency this season. The rating from the last 3 games would rank tied for 295th. You are tied with the mighty Marist Red Foxes, who are 4-6 in the MAAC.
Their feisty Red Foxes.
Oh, they're Marist. They get you sometimes,
Powerhouse of the MAAC.
In their last 3 games defensively, they'd rank tied for 184th with San Jose State and Columbia. But it's all right. All right. Maybe they could be like juggernauts. You never know. For context, San Jose State lost by 41 to Arkansas, and Columbia lost by 40 to Rutgers. So that's a bad team without him. But with him, I mean, you go to war with Arizona. You beat a good Texas Tech team, and then you beat a good Arkansas team. You play a very competitive game with Texas, who was the number 2 team in the country at the time. It is a completely different team with him back. That changes everything.
Yeah.
So
that's the big thing for me. You know what I think is crazy right now is that Creighton came into the season on KenPom, started the year at 23rd. They're currently at 27th. They basically have not moved. They have essentially met KenPom's expectation for this season.
Yeah, I mean, these are 2 very top-heavy teams, I think, too. Not very deep. Creighton plays in a lot of close games. 4 of their last 6 losses have come by 5 points or less. So, I mean, this is going to be a stereotypical Big East battle. It's going to be tilted in Butler's way. But, yeah, I think the Ryan Kalkbrenner status is, if he plays or if he doesn't, is going to be where I lean my pick in this one. And kind of related, but not really related. The Arizona State loss from Creighton is looking worse and worse. Have you guys seen that game?
I just sent you guys links to this.
Really?
It's in the private chat.
Oh, let me check.
Yeah, they're getting absolutely.
Sure enough.
They're getting the Dons, baby, the Dons. Oh yeah, love me some Dons.
Yeah. So yeah, Arizona State getting shellacked there. So we're looking at the number 24 and number 25 teams in the country losing here. If Marquette's going to stay in the poll, Arizona State losing that one will help them out.
Arizona State might not get a vote if this game finishes the way it does.
They're not.
Yeah. All right. We want to wrap up here quickly. Try to get this done by 11. So I just give me your picks on Butler, Creighton. Michael, we'll start with you.
I think if Kalkbrenner plays, which I assume he will, I think it's a close game. I think Creighton by 2 or 3.
All right, Tommy?
I'm going to go Butler by 2 or 3 just because even if he does play, I don't think he's going to be 100%. Mm-hmm. Give me Butler in a dogfight.
I'm going Creighton here by 8+. If Kalkbrenner plays.
Cover?
I like Butler a lot this season. I think this is a really rough start to this Big East schedule for Butler. And I think Creighton to me is still probably one of the 30 best teams in the country when Ryan Kalkbrenner is playing, and they're playing at home. They're probably going to be angry. They're rested. This seems like one of those games where they just come out and they play their game, and it's more about what Creighton does than anything Butler has out there.
All you Butler Bulldogs fans, that should be a huge sign of encouragement here. The last pod that we had the other night, Matt and the guest both picked St. John's to beat Villanova. I picked Villanova. You saw how that game went. So Butler fans,
bet your life savings on Butler to win.
Hashtag not betting advice.
Yeah. And we'll look ahead real quick here. I don't know if there's a lot to say about this game, but the Big East did decide to put a game on Christmas this year. And there were only 2 teams willing to play in it, and that's Creighton and DePaul. So this is going to be DePaul at Creighton, 4:30 Eastern on Christmas Day. This is the national broadcast on Fox. One, I'm going to be very interested to see what the viewership numbers look like for this. 2, I think we need to start a therapy program for anybody who watches this game willingly instead of spending time with family. And 3, I mean, it's got to be a Creighton win based on what we've seen from DePaul recently, right?
Creighton could be without Kalkbrenner and like 3 other of their starters, and DePaul is just so banged up right now. I think that they'd win anyway. I don't think DePaul's necessarily like relatively bad. I don't think that they're the worst team in the Big East, but I mean they're so injured right now. They're taking baseball bats to guys' knees at practice. It seems like it's crazy. But yeah, I don't care if my firstborn child played for either one of these teams. I would not tune in to this on Christmas Day. Please find something better to do with your time. And that's all I got. Creighton, obviously, if you need a pick.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I'll actually personally I'll be watching Denver versus the Rams in football. That's the big game you gotta watch.
That's right.
That is a sickos football game, and I am so incredibly here for it. Baker Mayfield, baby,
Mr. Unlimited. But Creighton wins
Rams
this game
country.
by 1,000.
Let's bake.
Creighton is going to break DePaul. This will be a Creighton statement game. You need momentum. Let's say they don't look great against Butler. Maybe they win, maybe they lose, but they don't look great. They're going to absolutely break DePaul. This game will not be close. It will be over quickly. Creighton will hit like 3,000 threes. It'll just be, and then we'll see like no one will talk about it because they're just going to destroy them. And then, yeah, Creighton by 1 million. Book it.
Yeah, I don't see this one being close. And if that happens, I mean, this is a 3-game homestand for Creighton. That last one is against Seton Hall in early January. So I think that'll be an interesting game, especially if they win these next 2. I think that's another good like barometer for where Creighton is right now. Because if Creighton is a top 30 team, you win that game. You find a way to get it done. We'll see what happens. I think that's going to do it for us in this one. Any final thoughts from either of you?
Tune into the power rankings on Monday. Is that when we release on Monday?
Yeah, we'll do it. I'm not going to ask people to vote on Christmas. We'll figure that out on Monday. We'll have the power rankings out early next week.
There's going to be a lot of shift, I presume.
James Breeding shouldn't be able to officiate a high major game. There should be a blacklist. You need to find there needs to be a list and just be like, that guy out, gone. He's awful. Oh my God.
We should have relegation for officials.
Just get rid of him.
James Breeding has been relegated to high school basketball games.
He shouldn't be able to officiate a high school game. Put him at like
back to James Breeding.
Look, if you've ever had to work like low, like girls, like 5th grade basketball games and man like 8-6, it's torture. I've had to do it before. It's not like working the scoreboard. It's like, all right, I'm not counting rebounds. That's not happening. James Breeding should have to do that for the amount of torture he's put people watching him through. Nobody's watching for you, James. Bust off. No, not you. Out.
I don't know. I got my James Breeding jersey in the back. I'm always excited when he's on my TV. That's why I watch.
If someone got me a James Breeding jersey for Christmas, I'd wear it.
We're sort of GoFundMe for a James Breeding jersey for Michael. You can find it now on our shop.
Oh my God.
All right. That's going to do it for us for this one. If you'd like to see, if you're just listening to this and you'd like to see Michael's facial expressions while talking about James Breeding, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get the video version of this. If you're listening to it, make sure you're subscribed wherever that is. Follow us on Twitter at Road to the Garden. That's Road 2 the Garden. And we'll see you next time. We'll have some content for you early next week. We got some big East games next week. Got a big one next Wednesday. Villanova UConn. We'll have a preview for that and much more. So stick around for that. But for now, thank you very much for listening and have a happy holidays.